to the room. This is where Vala and I and Elle talk about all our guests. No, just kidding. Welcome to the Green Room, here live here in Davos, Switzerland. Here with my awesome co-host Vala Afshar, co-founder, and of course our amazing producer Elle. We're here with our guests. We always introduce them in reverse order of appearance. More importantly, we get a chance to talk a little bit about what they're doing and of course what's happening in those worlds. So with that, yeah, let's start by figuring out where everybody's coming in from and what we're talking about. So Vernon, where are you coming in from? What are you talking about?
I'm calling from the edge of Silicon Valley here in Oakland, California.
Welcome.
What's top of
your mind? Vision headquarters here. This is our AI command center.
I see. And what are you going to talk about today? What are we going to talk about other than agents, perhaps?
Yeah, well, we did a study with UC Berkeley last summer where we talked to a lot of customers and kind of got an idea on what's going on with this 95% success rate on enterprise, and we got an idea what we think is needed for big enterprises to be successful. So I'm here to talk about that.
Oh, wonderful. Demystifying the myth that's going on. I did this in backwards order, so I apologize. You're going to be going first, Vernon. Nicholas, what's going on? What's on your mind?
I'm happy to go first. I'm calling from New York City. I'm talking about the exact opposite of big enterprises, which is everyday entrepreneurs and how AI helps the 60% of people who have had an idea for a business but don't do anything about it get going and find success with building small AI companies designed around the customers that they know best.
Awesome. Well, pre-hype is an important problem, so totally get it. And of course, we'll get into those topics. Yeah, we're probably going to go 20, 25 minutes each. We'll kick in from there and of course, do a show recap. So with that, I'm turning it back to you, Elle, for the count.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hello,
and on.
That was fun. Hello.
The bomb.
Yeah, I like that intro video. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us on DisrupTV. My name is Vala Afshar. I'm the Chief Evangelist at Salesforce and your co-host for the next hour. We welcome you to send Ray, myself, our distinguished guests, any questions you have live, and we'll do our best to answer them. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host, Ray Wong. He's the CEO, founder of Constellation Research. He's the best-selling author of Everybody Wants to Rule the World, right now dialing in from Davos. I see Ray on TV, I think on a daily basis, CNBC, Bloomberg, Fox Business, and he's one of the top futurists to follow on X at RWANG0. Welcome, Mr. Wong from Davos to DisrupTV.
Yeah, welcome. We're having a lot of fun here. Thanks for the intro. Val Ashar, as you all know, is the Chief Digital Evangelist for Salesforce. He's also have multiple books, including Boundless and Autonomous, the #1 sellers on Amazon, and The Path to the Future. Executives around the world pay attention to everyone's insightful, inspirational tweets. And more importantly, when he's on social media, he's hosting, keynoting, leading events at Salesforce. And you can find him speaking on business TV outlets such as Bloomberg and, of course, ABC. If he's not writing, he's also writing. And he's writing insightful analyses on ZDNet. And he's also one of the top keynoters in the world that only Salesforce customers have the luxury of hearing from him. So with that, we got a very, very special guest, someone that is in the midst of all the action. Who do we have today?
We have an OG on our show. We've got somebody who's been covering tech for nearly 5 decades. When Commerce came out in the 90s, he was a pioneer leading companies in understanding emerging technologies, and he's doing it now. Vernon Keenan, senior analyst, industry analyst, and founder of Keenan Vision. boy, he's got an incredible bench. I just found out some of the members of Keenan Vision. Vernon is founder of Keenan Vision and publisher of Salesforce DevOps Net, the leading analytics publication in the Salesforce ecosystem. He's a strategic advisor to Salesforce executives leadership on AI strategy, competitive positioning. He collaborates with UC Berkeley, Haas on research examining, and we're going to talk about that, why, for example, 95% of enterprise GenAI pilots fail to reach production. His recent publications include Architecture as Strategy paper with Dr. Abhishek Nagaraj, providing the first empirical framework for AI architecture decisions. With, again, 45 plus years, if I'm not mistaken, it's 46 years tracking enterprise technology from Lisp to Agentforce. Vernon coined many terms in our industry, including virtual employee economics, to analyze AI agents as labor market disruptors. He's currently developing the Nexus of Abundance initiative addressing workforce transformation in the AI economy. We only have a half hour. Vernon, I had to condense your bio. You've done a lot. Welcome to Disrupt.
I gave you a shorter version, so thank you for the flattery.
I know, but our audience needs to know that we're in front of a luminary. So thanks for joining us. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. My pleasure.
Let's go deep. Let's go to the heart of the issue.
Ooh, good.
And I'm going to be the one that says it. Some ridiculously report that goes out and says 95% of enterprise Gen AI pilots fail. And what does your research reveal differently about escaping pilot purgatory? And this is really important because people shout these things across, I might call it business misinformation about what is really happening on the ground in this agentic era. And so, I don't know, tell us a little bit more about pilot.
Sure. Well, let's dissect the MIT study 95% number.
Yeah, let's go straight there because that's the issue. So,
because that one I would say is dissectable. We could look at that and see exactly what they did, which was to look at balance sheet and revenue numbers for the firms that they decided to analyze, and then they basically had a kind of a weak survey instrument where they went around and talked to people to try to figure out what it was. So I think this study did get overblown somewhat, but we did a somewhat similar study at UC Berkeley Haas where we talked to 45 or so actual ecosystem participants, and we found some things that are blocking too. And the term that we came up with to kind of indicate what's missing in a lot of enterprises is called activation energy. So when you are creating an AI application, there are many things that go into it. We know it's just way beyond just how much the LLMs perform. That's another thing I can't stand in the press recently, is how everyone's harping on this thing where Salesforce says that they are using agent script to like do more processing with the application. Well, all this is doing is just taking more context and doing stuff with it programmatically. That's what they're doing. They're not giving up on LLMs. They just have a more thorough orchestration pattern. And this is one of the things that's missing from a lot of AI implementations out there. A lot of people don't really, even executives nowadays, don't even get the difference between interacting with an LLM at their desktop versus what's actually happening in a process and in an orchestration process that's harmonizing data across different parts of the business and putting it all together so that you can create an agentic context out of it. So we think that this issue of activation energy kind of gets to the heart of it. Like, it also points out, quite honestly, where the incumbents are having a little trouble right now, is that if you want to, like, everyone says to me, well, why can't I just use Claude now to do what Salesforce does? And why can't I just use, Claude Code specifically to vibe code an app that'll let me do that kind of thing? And that doesn't work necessarily when you're trying to put together a whole enterprise worth of data so that you can create the contexts and create the environments in which the agents can operate. So that's just one of several things we came up with.
All right, let's step back a little bit for our audience. who are excited and nervous and anxious about AI, in December, I believe you wrote a piece, 2026, the year AI gets real. This was a forward-looking piece on the shift from AI hype to functional, integrated agents, enterprise agents. Can you just give us an overview of why you believe that we're at a point where it's no longer hype? And I'm sure Ray can validate the reality of this technology at Davos, because I believe if you compare 2025 Davos to 2026, the conversations were more real, there were more use cases, there were definitely more business outcomes. But talk about the post you wrote very, very recently about this year, an important year.
So yeah, I think what we've seen in 2025 is that agents are definitely real. I mean, to say that they're not real is a mistake. I think that we don't have diffusion yet is the main thing, that we don't have agents diffusing into the most of the economy. But if you have the right context, if you have the ability to access all the information systems in an enterprise that are required to put things together, and that you're able to orchestrate that together into an application that works. We know that there are several startups, for example, that are being very successful in this regard. So, I mean, the thing everyone likes to talk about is Sierra. So we got Sierra with the fastest to 100 million ARR ever for a SaaS type startup like that. And that indicates that yeah, you can put everything together into the correct orchestration. But actually, I think that that's going to be handled by the offerings coming out of the various vendors, the embedded vendors and the overlay vendors too, are going to suss out through 2026. But I still have a feeling in that piece you mentioned, my prediction is that 2026 actually won't be the final year of the agent. I think when we get to, I think we're looking at the next 5 years will be the year of the agent. The thing that once we figure out context and once we figure out the things that make stuff like 95 or 98% accurate, then we have the 2% left over. What else can we add to orchestration besides knowledge injection, for example, that will take us further along the way to autonomy? So I think towards the end of the year in Q4, I am feeling more confident that more folks like Salesforce and other big vendors are going to be posting much bigger numbers for agentic usage because these things really are coming together. And
definitely.
I think that there will be a lot more, but I think the ramp is huge. If we're everybody's concerned with the enterprise right now, and there's almost zero attention made to the opportunity lower down in the mid-tier enterprise even, or a small business. So I think there's just so much room to grow, especially when we're talking about software as a service, or is it service as a software now? I think, yeah, service as a software. The whole idea of substituting labor with virtual employees, I think that is really, it's going to start taking hold towards the end of the year and going forward. But I still think there's a lot of work that needs to be done on agentic systems.
Sure. And our next guest will talk about it at the Entrepreneur Small Business and opportunities there. So go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that one of the big things we're seeing is the fact that we're getting what we call infinite possibilities. We're seeing what we call exponential scale, all while margin compression is happening at the same time. And so the things that you're talking about tie back to the productivity in agents, and it's going to get very exciting over the next 3 to 6 months. So I'm glad there's some demystification here going on, as well as research to research that's getting back to the truth, which has really been a big challenge. So, but truth to power, what's going on, right? I mean, we know companies. One of my favorite sites, and people hear me say this every day, tinyteams.xyz. They're not a sponsor. They have no idea we're sending traffic their way. But the point being is you're seeing scale. 20 people, 200 million in ARR. 10 people, 200 million ARR. Okay, someone screwed up. 14 people, 17 million ARR. That's like $1 million per employee in ARR. Like it's never been seen at that scale.
Yeah, yeah, Ray. It's personal too, because I know you like to tell a story about how your son is involved in stuff like this, and we're doing it too at Keenan Vision too.
It's
I mean,
crazy.
we're definitely.
Let's talk truth to power. I mean, this piece is that's happening hand in hand here. Like, what is the honest assessment of where we actually going to get to, right? And more importantly, like, how does that tie to productivity? Because people are worried about productivity.
Well, yeah, no, they're worried about productivity. In terms of, are you referring to the quiet erosion where people are worried about their jobs here?
Well, no, I'm not worried about the jobs. It's productivity. Like, I'll give an example. So today, your contact center agent's $10 to $15, depending on the level. Maybe my future agent is $2 going to 1, going to 50 cents, right? Instead of paying by call, we can now put accurate kind of role relationships to say, because one of the things that we typically do is we try to help customers understand that it's not pure gain sharing. Your ability to add capacity now is at $2 an hour versus 15.
Right. So yeah, so what you're talking about there is we're getting into that realm when AI is going to let you do things you couldn't do before, and then that will expand the TAM overall into what these agentic systems can do. And that's a great example of what you're doing there. I think the thing is, example is like, let's say you're running an international bank and you want to open up a branch in another country. Well, now that's possible in terms of customer service, where before it really wasn't. So you would have to hire all the staff and all that. So I mean, that goes along with our research, where we think that in general, agents let you replicate them infinitely for almost zero cost when they're fully optimized. So this is the thing that's gotten in the head of CEOs, I think, is actually the root cause of our growth with no hiring environment that we're in right now, where people kind of assume that these agents are going to be out there and are going to be replacing jobs or doing the growth opportunity. Like I just made an example there of growing a bank, that people are thinking about that now. So even though the agents are not here, like I say, that people are definitely still thinking about that. I don't see 2026 changing that at all. Everything that's going on, like what you're talking about, Ray, the infinite possibilities, is reinforcing all of that assumptions that people have.
And you quietly, no pun intended, referenced this term quiet erosion, which you've written about.
Yes.
And it was your thesis based on entry-level jobs and what maybe enterprises are missing in terms of AI, but what human resource and employee success leaders need to be thinking about. How do you focus on apprenticeship pathways and journeys, and demographic adjustments? Talk to us about this term quiet erosion and advice to business leaders in terms of how to properly focus on developing their existing talent and recruiting the right talent to grow their business.
Right. Well, I kind of see this directly with my interaction with the MBA students, that I think I get a lot of service out of my Claude code that seems an awful lot like a recent MBA grad. Or,
What does that mean to us?
I mean, it is. So I think it's real. It's what we call cognitive commoditization is happening all over the place, and that you've got things like all the book knowledge that it takes to get an MBA at an American university, all inside of these LLMs right now. All of that basic knowledge is there. The thing that's not there is the experience and everything else. So, and we know that the consulting industry is a good example where we're seeing some of this decimation right now.
Okay, that just to interrupt you, you also wrote, these are all recent writings, by the way. People watching, follow Keenan. You wrote about the consulting industrial complex being threatened by forward deployment engineers, where you can now implement and guide and consult. Talk about that as well as we talk about.
Well, there's a new cohort of consultants out there now that I call forward deployed entrepreneurs, and this is to kind of mix the idea of forward deployed engineers, which is kind of, in many cases, it's just a purple unicorn. It's just a superstar developer who also knows the particular line of business in which they're working,
Right.
and they're able in their mind. This is how people envision FDEs: is that they're
Sure.
in their mind, they're able to kind of merge that business knowledge and the technical knowledge so that they can code solutions super fast,
Right.
and do it super well. Well, that would actually that does happen, but what actually is happening now is you get people at like Accenture or one of these big places, and you can just imagine this happening like almost every day now somewhere around the world. Somebody stands up in their office, they say, I am sick of all this, I can't stand working for you guys anymore, and you never use the AI tools that I'm using. What are you doing? So they point to 2 or 3 other people that they know, and then they go out. I think this is exactly what happened to Ray's kid, if I'm not mistaken. But then they go out, they form a firm, and then they're using all these AI tools, and you've got like six or 8 guys and gals, and they're able to function like a team of 40 Accenture people.
We're seeing 3 versions of that. One is like 4 kids, 17 million ARR first year, 39 million ARR the second year. Product-led growth works, right? And when you take from product-led growth to sales-led growth, though, you now have to fire like salespeople. You need enterprise architects, customer service, support, 4 deployed engineers. So that's a very, very different thing. But they can get to sales-led growth for about 100 million, right? And not take money on the no VC on the cap table, right? That is wild, right? Then we're seeing the other thing. We just announced 31 AI-first consulting firms, and
that is a major trend, and I see that can also happen on an intrapreneur kind of basis as well.
Exactly.
So I think
revenue
that's the new COE, actually, the new center of
200,000
excellence.
revenue per employee, 20% digital labor, with about 100 agents that are running. Then we're seeing 2 really smart people, massive domain expertise, paired up with 3 or 4 engineers, your model that you're talking about, and they're able to crank out something like on the fly, right? I mean, it's one of the most exciting times in the world here.
Right, and that pattern I mentioned before, these people are walking out of these firms with customer relationships in enterprise.
Right.
So it's really frightening, I think, for the big consulting firms. What they're typically going to do, though, is they're just going to have like a skunk. They'll try to have a skunk works that does exactly what we're talking about here, and they'll try to have those people within their boundary. But as a former slave to that type of environment, I don't see why anybody would want to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. My last question to you, Vernon. You talk about in your writing why control of context may matter more than control of the models. And again, a term you coined through your research, intelligence gradient. Can you talk about what is that? What is that, and why should enterprise leaders think about that?
That's a version of what we're discussing right now about this top layer. So I'll describe these layers. So the way I kind of envision the AI industry is that the foundation, it's very much like the telecom industry, if you're at all familiar with this. So I, as an ex-telecom guy, I guess I'm biased, but I see the model providers as like the long distance carriers or the global, creators, and there's a level above that, which is the orchestration level. And this is where I see Salesforce and the hyperscalers and the big SaaS companies who are embedding their systems. They're providing generic embedded capabilities of these models within there. And above that, you've got then the vertical application developers. So this is where I put Harvey and Abridge and all of those guys. Then above that, in the biggest layer of all in my envisioning here is the last mile. Are these developers we were just discussing, people who can bring service to enterprises and eventually smaller businesses and anybody else who needs this kind of thing. So that's what and then here's how cognitive commoditization comes into play here. So So let's say that you're going into the to the legal industry, and let's say that you're a hotshot developer. You know how to use Python notebooks and OpenAI and API and Cloud API or whatever, and you've developed your own paralegal assistant on your own, and the efficiency you're getting on that, the cognitive commoditization, is like 1,000 to 1. It's like you're getting like 1,000 to 1 productivity versus that guy. But then you go down, the next thing is, oh, okay, my buddy down the hall, he wants to use this thing too. So, okay, I got to put this on AWS. I got to put security on. I got to do all this. Then the costs go up. Cognitive commoditization went from 1,000 to 1 to 100 to 1. Still awesome.
Yeah.
Now you're Harvey. You do the exact same thing. You've made a product out of this type of thing. Then you can sell it to somebody else for, like a corporate, their market, who they go for 10 to 1 cognitive commoditization. But there's still margin there. There's still this gradient, this new intelligence gradient that I'm talking about here. So there's still margin, just like how you've got last mile telephone providers and last mile, managed service providers who sell telecom and things like that. This is where I see people are able to now get that 5 to 1 margin or whatever they can get in that last mile, but it's going to spread out and create a whole new class of entrepreneurs. That's
going to be super exciting. I mean, Vernon, think about it. 100-person company could take out the largest IT services firms in the world. 1,000-person company could take out, like any kind of software company that's out there. A single person could do $1 billion in revenue. Think about that.
Well, I'm skeptical on that one, on the 1-person billion one, but that's possible.
I got to do something exciting.
No, but it's fun to dream, and it's also important to dream about these kind of things to kind of let people understand the possibilities, and I think to also let people understand where they are with their business now, because this is the thing that I worry about the most about AI, is just that there's going to be, it's not that you're going to lose your job because your company is doing AI. It's that your business is going to go out of business because your competitors are doing AI.
Yes,
I think that to me is the biggest employment threat that we're looking at.
One of the in the 45 years of covering tech, have you ever seen innovation velocity, speed, and direction like we've experienced in the last 3-4 years?
No, and one of the proxies I use is kind of like a hobby of mine or a fun activity, is to like go visit all the meetups that happen all the time, and to get a temperature for what's going on when we have one of these gold rushes. And I go there to meet what I call modern 49ers, people who have come to the Bay Area to look for gold. And the thing now is that activity is hyper activity right now. The number of meetups, the number of international people I meet at these things from all over the world coming into the city, it's really a unique cultural event.
Sure.
It's been going on for the last 2 years here.
Definitely is. Vernon Keenan, senior industry analyst and founder of Keenan Vision. He started when he was 5. Amazing. And of course, catch everything you need to read on the Keenan Vision.
You don't age when you're in this space. You don't age.
Are you kidding me? I believe NVIDIA Broadcast is doing its job with my skin. So
thank you. Please come back again.
Oh, my pleasure. I'll hang around and listen to you guys too. So.
Thank you. Cheers. Right. Thank you, Vernon. That's awesome. Okay, now let's shift the focus. What
were you doing when you were 5?
Let's talk about big enterprise. Let's go for the entrepreneurs who are dreaming, daring, and doing big work. Nicholas Thorne, co-author of Me, My Customer and AI, The New Rules of Entrepreneurship. Nicholas is an entrepreneur and student of entrepreneurship. He's co-founder of Odos, an entrepreneurial AI company, which he created to capture his learnings from a decade of building a venture studio, Prehype. Through Prehype, Nicholas has worked with entrepreneurs to start dozens of companies and has documented the methods used by founders in firms' portfolios to create companies like Bark, Row, Public.com, among others. Nicholas frequently shares his learnings at Stanford University and beyond with lectures on novel entrepreneurship methods and how AI will impact entrepreneurships. He serves on boards of Ferry and For Them, among other young companies in the pre-hype portfolio. He is, again, the co-author of Me, My Customer, and I, which we're going to discuss. Must-read guide for how to harness AI in order to break barriers, accelerate growth, and build successful businesses in the age of AI. Welcome, Nicholas, to DisrupTV.
Thank you for having me.
What do you think of it?
That's on the book.
What do you think of the tiny teams, right? You talk about entrepreneurship. It's not just an advantage, but it's changed in the age of AI. And it's going to be essential in many people's livelihoods. So do you think the influence of the future work and the traditional career path is completely destroyed, or there's still a few people that are going to be doing that?
I don't know. I mean, that last conversation would suggest to me that there'll be plenty of people who are still working in the enterprise, and that's fine. But yeah, I think many more people. I mean, I think McKinsey's latest estimates are 350 or something million people are going to be forced to look for a new job as a result of AI. And so AI presents this kind of conundrum of, obviously it's a problem that needs to be solved, which is what does everyone do? But it also creates a part of the opportunity, which is we've all probably had the experience of making a logo with ChatGPT or vibe coding an app and seeing our ideas turned into something, maybe not fully real, but more real so quickly. And it's magical. But in turn, there's this kind of paradox for entrepreneurs, which is that while AI makes it easier to get started, it also makes it much harder to stand out. Everyone, you guys are rattling off statistics, and I love the framework of, these different layers. And I happen to think that, your everyday entrepreneur is going to be the application layer, like that we all have this opportunity in front of us to find our niche, be really specific about who it is, be the person who delivers the intelligence, premium to that community of people, leverage AI to kind of do everything other than, build the intimate relationship with your customer, and use that relationship capital that you develop with your customer to feed the feedback loop of what product you build next. But everyone's going to be doing that. So the question is, what is the thing that you do to stand out? And so a big part of our book, in fact, all of it is really focused on, and of what we are doing at Autos as kind of the applied side of what we research and think about in our book, is how do you stand out in this age we're heading to? And I think it's actually by being quite small, by approach. So I actually think there's an interesting point when Vernon said, he doesn't believe in the first billion, one person $1 billion company. I mean, I happen to think those are going to be there because what we've learned is, like, when you get going, you just never know what happens. But I'm more interested in, for every one person $1 billion a year company, how many one person 100 million, one person 10 million, one person $1 million a year companies there are going to be. We call those donkey corns. They party like a unicorn, $1 billion company, but they grind like a mule. And I think there's going to be a lot of those.
And they kick ass.
So we're very interested in that. And in fact, I think it's by staying small and using all the best intelligence, all the best AI, but keeping your focus on what niche you serve really tight, is one of the paths, at least, that we offer in our book, and we believe will be a path to kind of resilience and differentiation in the age we're going to. Anyway, so to answer your question, no, I don't think everyone's out of a job, but I think a lot of people are and interested in what they're going to spend their time doing.
Well, that's what you're doing. I mean, at your company, you're helping entrepreneurs take their ideas and put them into action. Talk to us about, what does that process look like in terms of turning someone's expertise into a business? And then specifically, how does AI play a role in that? And I suspect this, by turning ideas into companies, and numerous successful companies, that was the reason why you decided to write a book, capture those lessons and scale your learnings to a wider audience. Was that the reason?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, by way of brief backstory, I spent the 2010s with my business partner, and as my bio kind of intonated, largely kind of practicing and studying the, let's call it the art, but probably more the science or the game of starting venture capital backed startups. And I think we all know a lot has changed in that world, but it became evident to us 4 or 5 years ago that if we could take what we had learned about how maybe you could get started with something new and go from the inkling of an idea to in-market serving customers, and from in-market serving your first customers to kind of scaling to your first real revenues, that if we could take a lot of what we had learned in that process and make it available by AI agent, or probably more specifically, and kind of an orchestra of AI agents, that you might really like significantly change the shape of how many businesses a year you could start and who you could be doing that with. And so, yeah, we ended up spending basically from 2020, we got access to GPT-3 in the fall of 2020. I remember the first time we were in like the OpenAI sandbox making these little API requests. And you just could kind of tell immediately that so much of this work that typically is what exhausts people when they're on this earliest stage of like, I've got this idea, but I got to get it out there. I got to get in front of people. I've got so many different things I could do. I'm not really sure which one to do next. That if you could just start to put more of those things on autopilot, you might find that people could kind of get over that first hump, get over themselves, frankly, get out of their own head, get in front of people. And that in turn, for a lot of people, and I would argue the right people, is where you start getting feedback from customers. And that's that's like intoxicating for most people, because you have people who actually say, yeah, no, that problem that you thought was out there, it's a real problem, and I have it, and I would love for you to solve it. And so we orient everything we do from like what the playbooks, if you will, that are in our book to the ways the agents on autos work towards this job of like, how do we massively compress the time and space between you have this idea and you're out in front of customers. And so that means when you're on autos.com, I mean, you give it a very little bit of guidance and it starts doing all these things. It makes you your first landing page. And not only does it make you a landing page, it generates videos that look, make the landing page look really professional and not just this kind of like static bit of text. It's going to go vibe code you your first few apps so that you actually have kind of a service offering immediately. It's going to generate your first bit of marketing collateral so that you can buy your first Facebook ad. It's going to go place that ad. It's going to kind of arrive at a little bit of an audience segmentation strategy. It's going to put a CRM in place for you, because the difference between kind of like vibe coding an app and being in business is like when someone comes to your site, you actually send them an email tomorrow that says, thanks for joining, and by the way, we'd like to keep going. And then it's going to put a wallet, in place for your agent through which we and you can contribute capital to actually start to scale that. And so, yeah, we're just massively oriented towards this question of, can you just, eliminate everything that stands between an entrepreneur and their customers. And I think the progress that's been made from AI on that front over the last year is just mind blowing in terms of how much more is possible.
Absolutely. You started in the middle of COVID, like fall 2020.
That's when we started tinkering. Yeah.
Yeah. 2 years before the November 2022, where the world woke up. GPT, you got a 2-year head start.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I wish I could say that we, I think that just meant that you were, burning tokens before things were fully possible, but you definitely knew what was coming.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Go ahead, Ray.
I mean, you definitely see these things that are happening, and these entrepreneurs are popping up out of nowhere. They've got the tools, they've got the capability, and then it gets to this point where product-led growth to sales-led growth changes. It changes everything. I mean, you're starting to see that, with some of these larger companies. What do you have to do differently? Because we're just moving so fast. Are there certain things, like your book could have just been an agent? I mean, given how you wrote it.
We actually wrote, and we have like, I don't know, a few pages in, we have this little kind of like interstitial chapter that's basically like, we know what you're thinking. Which is
exactly. I wasn't going to give it away.
I probably think that today, we wrote it a year and a half ago. I mean, like, in terms of when you really started writing it, I just think the progress, to your point, like
every book is a query engine.
Right? Yeah, totally. And basically one of the reasons we published the book is so that when someone says to any of our agents, what's like the prompting that you are operating on, like what's the context you're working with, that it can basically say, well, like I could explain it to you, but it's just written in a book. It's like 225 pages in a book. And I'm not going to say that it's like word for word that the book is in all of our prompting, but it's pretty close. It's certainly all the same. Like we sat down in 2020 to look at the decade of successes and failures that we had, starting venture-backed startups. And the way that we went about that is to write stuff down. It just so happened that because getting access to OpenAI, we were writing both for the sake of writing what would become a book, but also writing prompts. And I probably wrote as many characters of prompts as I did of pages of the book.
No, but this gets to the interesting question about venture-backed startups, right? I'm here in Davos, and I realized a couple things were happening. There's no reason to take anyone on your cap table, right? At that level. I mean, you can get to $50, $100 million without that. And what does that mean, right? So venture is never going to be the same again, because people don't need you on the cap table unless you're strategic. So if someone gave you $500 million as a fund, or raised $500 million as a fund, I don't think they could deploy 100 million of it, because 500 is either too much or too little. Too much being like, I can only deploy 100 million because it's so efficient to build now. And too little because I need 10 billion to play in the data center infrastructure space. So we got this big barbell going on right now. And
that's obviously why we're trying to be in the business of helping fund these small businesses, which I think requires a completely different funding model. So like we underwrite a transaction that looks a lot more like how you might publish a book or sign a recording artist to a record deal. It's much more of a royalty agreement. It's kind of, you get an advance, you get some money right in your pocket. So it's got the kind of a secondary component of it, super, super duper early, which is completely different. So at the smaller end of that dumbbell, I think that you're going to need, new funding, or we're certainly along the notion that you need new funding models, because, the analogy that we often think about is, you put the wrong fuel in the wrong vehicle, and even if it's an awesome thing, it doesn't work. You go put rocket fuel in a jet, the jet doesn't work. You go put jet fuel in a Ferrari, the Ferrari doesn't work. These are all awesome things to own and have. The one thing you just don't want to do is ruin it. And so I think that there are still going to be like AI jets and AI rockets, and to your point, some of those require an unbelievable amount of capital. And I think it just hopefully requires that everyone be a little bit more thoughtful about what type of outcome are they trying to have? What type of business are they trying to build? And what is the right way for them to get started and then to scale?
Well, actually, one of the reasons I was bringing this up to you is because the funding model that we have in VC, where the 2% carry, the carry may go away, right? Because you might end up with a 1% carry and then a step up on return. I'll give you 10% for 1x. 20% for 2x, 30% for 3x. I get the 50, I have to do 49 because people get upset with that. But you get the idea, right? I mean,
I think, well, if you look even at like private equity or some of these, parts of the asset manager and alternative asset manager, ecosystem, the funding, the fee structures are more sophisticated, and that's largely because they're bigger and more competitive markets. VC, when you think about it, has escaped a lot of that to date, and I think that's because I'm not going to say it's immature, but it hasn't faced maybe some of the scrutiny that will be put upon it by this technological wave.
We're talking about the only constant is change, but one thing doesn't change is the importance of deeply understanding and having knowledge about your early customers. And you talk about relationship capital. And a framework of why entrepreneurs need, and why founders need to cultivate an understanding of mindset that really speaks to deep knowledge of your early customers. Can you talk about that and what you do to ensure that the companies that you advise adopt this mindset?
Yeah, I mean, the basic premise is that, to your point of the only constant is change itself. And Elon Musk actually, had this argument with Warren Buffett a decade ago, where Buffett was talking about moats, and Elon Musk went on and said, well, moats are these like hilarious, silly things. The fundamental determinant of competitiveness is your pace of innovation. And so if you take that, which we can all debate that, and I think there are still obviously industries where some of these traditional forms of advantage, which in the dictionary, in the business dictionary, might be called, your kind of capital, but like your intellectual capital, if you're Starbucks, you got stores in the right places, you got kind of physical capital. There are other forms of advantage, but if you take the version that says in the world we're going to, and especially with the accelerant that is AI, that the main way to differentiate is to innovate quickly, then the question becomes, what makes you good at innovating quickly? And our point of view is that the only version of that we could come up with that is available to almost everyone, and that in turn is kind of like the lens through which we obviously approach this whole topic, is we're not worried per se about the kids who are going to raise money in Silicon Valley, because I think they're pretty well taken care of. I'm worried about like the 60+% of people around the world who have an idea for a business and might be out of a job. When you take that framing and you ask, well, what's the way that they could form an advantage? The way they could form an advantage is being so
aware of their customers' needs and the emergence of new needs from a very tightly defined niche of people, that they are better at prompting the next product, right? They're basically better at giving the instruction. This is the next thing we need to build for this group of customers. And so you start to think about defining your business by who you serve, not by what you do. And this is a pretty fundamental change. There's lots of businesses Nike is in the business of serving athletes. They're not per se in the sneaker business. I know they started in the sneaker business, but there's a reason why they now can sell clothes and watches and experiences. And frankly, if there was like a Nike hotel, you can imagine what that might look like, right? Because they have a brand that's connected to that. Conversely, Hilton, for example, is in the hotel business. They're not per se in the business of helping any one group of people. I think that makes them, on this framework, much more vulnerable, because yes, we know what a Hilton hotel looks like, but if you had to imagine what a Hilton sneaker looks like, you can't really picture it, right? Yeah. And so if you take that, kind of frame of reference, I think that's what's going to happen in software, which is everyone's going to be able to build basically any software. You guys have been talking about it, right? So I can build a paralegal just like you can build a paralegal. So the question is, why is my paralegal better? And maybe it's not even technologically better. It might just actually be in the wrapper of who is bringing that paralegal software to market. And I probably have a pretty good claim, because I wrote a book, because I had to bring the paralegal for entrepreneurs, for very, not even for all entrepreneurs, for a very specific, tightly defined group of entrepreneurs. I could be the guy that does the paralegal for that crew, like who helps you get incorporated, but not much more than that, And I think that's basically what we're all going to be faced with, which is, where can we build advantage in the customer relationships that we have, which through the feedback of those relationships, we can figure out what product to build next and be the best kind of like delivery vehicle for that product offering. So that's what we think of as relationship capital. Is if you have an advantage in your relationships, then you have relationship capital, and it helps inform your product development cycle, which in turn we think is at least one path to how you stand out in the world we're heading to.
Well, actually, this brings up a very, sorry, Polly, go ahead.
No. I think that's a very.
We're like nodding at me, like almost like we're at we're like a metalhead rally. But so back to those three points I said earlier, right? So this creates a very interesting problem, right? We're margin compression. We have extreme, scale, and we have infinite possibilities. And the last one is really interesting, right? Because with infinite possibilities, what's the number one rule and strategy, Nick?
Know what not to do. I don't know. What is it?
Yes. You know what not to do. So the precision in the order of operations becomes so important, because you're moving at a velocity so fast that you could just, instead of going like here and hitting the moon, you went woo.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
over here.
Very slight course difference makes a big difference. Yeah.
Yes. And so taking all the things that you need to do, not only just fund formation or company formation or actually getting something out the door, we're now trying to find the fastest path to get to 50 million, the fastest path to 100 million, or in the fastest path to get to sales-like growth. And when we need to make that transition. So it's the crux, it's the crux of actually what this future is if you can get companies to 1 million ARR or 100,000 ARR in that speed, we've created the biggest small business class generation. This is your thesis.
Yeah, that's, precisely. We're on a mission to help 1 million people start $1 million a year business. And I don't know on what time frame we will do that, but whether we will do that, but that will happen in my lifetime. It's just kind of a question of, when, where, and how.
Looking ahead,
sorry, go ahead.
No, it's kind of I was going to say looking ahead 1 or 2 years, but then I realized that experts of the past are not maybe necessarily experts of the future. And look what we've done in the last just 2 years alone. But can you guide our community in terms of what you anticipate the landscape will look like? And
I can't do a year. Because honestly, I think. We just look at the launches of Q4 of last year, right? You talk about what Gemini 3 did to make just much more broadly available a set of things that only a small group of people. I think that for people who have not really gotten themselves into varying versions of how Claude Code, could impact them, I just think that the best advice I could give, and you're not asking for my advice, is for anyone on the planet to just sit with Claude Code for a day or two, because I think that's probably the closest thing to bringing the future to yourself today. And I know it sounds kind of intimidating, and you got to open a terminal and and it is, but it's also the most. I mean, my father is owns a cattle ranch. He has 200 cows. He's doing his accounting with Claude Code. And I just think that that's like an amazing concept.
That's
It has
awesome.
nothing to do with, yes, it's coding, but it's coding in that it's like going off and reading and writing to file.
But
fundamental
it's also important for board of directors and CEOs and the CX level to actually understand what they don't know when they do that, right? I mean, they don't even have a sense, right? When we were talking about exponential scaling, right? What went from a year project went to a day. You could vibe code the front end in a day. Right? You could not even code.
I can't even and for another time, or we can all get a beer and do it. I mean, like what Claude and other models can do today, and on autos.com, if you go there, in 20 minutes, I was working on a thing for my wife yesterday where she wants to redo our living room, of course. And, we vibe coded an app, on autos, but it happens to be it's basically a Claude wrapper. I'm not shy of that because that's not what we're trying to be in the business of doing. And, it's like, she's like, well, I want to be able to color off this piece of it and put a couch in the way. And instant, 5 minutes of like the thing sitting there thinking it's done. Right. So, I just think that you have to retrain your understanding of what's possible and the speed with which it's possible. That's the best view into the future, in my opinion.
That's great.
It's exciting time to be alive. This is crazy, right?
What do you hope that your readers get when they read your book?
Inspiration. Optimism.
Specifically, inspiration to actually not just have the idea, but execute.
And a practical orientation towards that. You don't need to do a bunch of fancy things to get going. You have to, in our view, pick a person that you know by name that you would like to help. And then just start asking the models, basically, this is dumbing it down, but ask the models like what you could do to start helping that person, and what could you make for that person? What's the problem that you could solve for that person? How could you maybe put a business? This is a very basic thing. Humans know how to do this, and this technology is only making it a lot easier for you to do it in the world we're in. So you just have to worry about the part that's very basic and human, which is trying to help someone, solve their problem.
And when is the next book coming?
I think we got to do a second edition pretty soon because this thing will be outdated. In a year.
You said the number of characters with you prompting is more than the book itself. So I'm assuming as your, Claude co-work is just firing up all around you, you must be thinking about.
I certainly think that the things that we write in there about what you could do. I like it. It's almost laughable at this point, 12 months later, in terms of how much further you can go. And I think even almost that's the thing I might have even underestimated in the book. I don't know that we fully leaned in enough to just how much easier this was going to make things. But again, the paradox is that that's just also what makes it so much harder to stand out. And so that becomes the topic really of the book. Yeah.
Right. Well, congratulations, and keep doing what you're doing. 1 million entrepreneurs building $1 million companies. What a great goal to have. If that's your guiding,
that's my North Star. Yeah, absolutely. That's it. That's what I wake up every morning to do. Yeah.
That's amazing. And people don't maybe not know that, 98% of businesses in the US are small businesses.
100%. It's the backbone of America, and
it's the backbone of America. That's right.
We need a new technological paradigm on which everyone can participate.
I hope someone in the government releases toolkits like this for people just to get started as part of an SAB, Small Business Administrator Initiative. I can see that one guy that I always see, Scott Benko. I'm thinking of this, or Jack Benko, the guy that's asking the SBA, advocating for us doing that. So it's pretty wild. We're in a new
people
age.
Like Steve Case that got on a bus and went cross country listening and funding entrepreneurs.
And Rebecca, whatever, for the Silicon, Silicon, I can't remember, the Industrial Valley of us, Silicon Plains. That's what she was doing.
Nick, we've got 1,500 people that have been on our show. Next week, we're going to have former Prime Minister of Australia. If there's a way for us to help elevate your message and help scale your North Star, let us know.
Absolutely will do. And I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Nicholas Thorne, co-author of Me, My Customer, and I, The New Rules of Entrepreneurship. Get it in Amazon or just wait for the second edition since it's coming out. Anyway, get it out now. Read it, rag it, bury it, have some fun. Drop it in Claude. It's already there probably.
Yeah, it'll give you all the answers for sure. You don't even have to read it. Just ask it. It knows it. I've done that. It does a pretty good job.
That's awesome. Congrats.
Hey, thanks. Come back again. We'd love to have you.
Thanks
Cheers.
so much.
Thank you. You start the conversation with enterprise adoption of digital labor, and it's messy beginning, messy middle, messy end. And the shittiest AI you're using is today's AI. Just wait a week or a month and you're going to have those issues go away. At least that's my experience. And now you talk about 1 million entrepreneurs earning $1 million or building $1 million companies. So this is a technology that will impact all of us in all industries, all geographies, all company sizes, including company of perhaps one, which is amazing. Did you feel that sense of vibrancy and energy being at Davos for a week? Do the policymakers and all these luminaries, do they also validate what our two guests just warned us about, that this is perhaps electricity for the 21st century, and without it, you're going to be in the dark, but with it, you could actually light up your business and have great success?
There was, and I don't know who said this, maybe someone said this so eloquently, like it was one of the trade secretaries. It was the trade secretary. He said this. He basically said, when electricity first came out, the governments made everyone put it in. People trained on how to use electricity. Vala. I mean, think about this. People trained on how to electricity. Plug, top. Can you imagine the guy that first got shocked? People trained on how to use electricity, and they worked it out and got it out there. No, look, at Davos, I think you have a couple camps, right? You have the camp that's like, let's just do it. No regulation. We're going to push as hard as we can. You got the camp that just wants to regulate everything. It might be dangerous. It might come and kill your kids at night. I mean, like, it's crazy, right? But then you have the entrepreneurs who take it down to reality. And it's like, hey, look, we're building this stuff. It's working. They're the things we're learning. So AI is definitely top of mind here in Davos. I would say that the other piece is really energy and how we actually use it in relationship to AI. And then, of course, all the geopolitics, which you and I don't ever talk about on the show. So it's kind of crazy. Like, these things are all happening at the same time. What was interesting to me was no one cared about POCs. Everybody wants outcomes. Like, it just within a year, it flipped.
We're beyond POCs. I mean,
and even the people that want outcomes are now getting into more complicated issues, right? Governance.
Scaling.
Yeah, scaling. And then even more importantly than that, it's really just, we're getting to this point, it's like decision automation. How do we do that? And that last point we're talking about earlier about, infinite possibilities, right? Your order of operations really have to be down pat. I mean, it's getting, but you can simulate it with AI. See, this is like, so like you're creating problems that are being solved by AI that are actually creating other problems that are being solved by AI. It's actually kind of like a nested loop of solutions that you're gonna have to come up with. But needless to say, a lot of fun discussions, a lot of interesting startups. I'm still here. I got to return to a Shabbat dinner. I snuck out, so don't tell you. Wait, everybody knows where I am, but that's the point. So I'm gonna go back there. But yeah, a lot going on here. So
you leave tomorrow?
I leave tomorrow to attend a relative's birthday party, so I can come back to Rome on Monday for sales kickoff.
Well, Consumer Electronics Show, National Retail Foundation, and Davos.
NRF for you? How's NRF for you?
No, it was great. A lot of learnings, a lot of actual implementations, including physical AI. We're now building robotics in retail, powered by Agentforce, and it's exciting to see the variety of robotics companies that are going to be helping us reshape the retail experience. So it was great. It was great. And
did you give a speech to like 200 CIOs or something?
I did. But that doesn't compare to the millions of people you're in front of. Next week on DisrupTV, we have former Prime Minister of Australia, Malcolm Turnbull, and Lucy Turnbull, the first woman mayor of Sydney, and two powerhouse, forward-looking policymakers and innovators. So we'll look forward to having you here with us. If it's Friday, it's DisrupTV, and we'll see you next week. Safe travels, Ray.
Hey, thanks. Safe travels, everyone. Happy Friday.
Bye-bye.